Save Mount Diablo. And among Meredith's most important career accomplishments is the creation of the Dr. Mary Bowerman Science and Research Program, which provides small grants, especially to students, for research projects on Save Mount Diablo's properties. So with that, Meredith, come on up, the Executive Director of the Land Trust for Santa Barbara County.
I feel like I'm standing in the corner, but is it that I can't get close to this?
You can try around with that. You can go anywhere you want.
Okay, but I have to stay in the camera here too, right? For
I
this?
would generally stay away from
Stay away from that. Okay, I feel like I'm hiding from you.
Okay.
Right under the speaker.
Meredith.
Okay.
Meredith, why don't you stand over there?
Okay.
By the flag.
Great.
Yeah.
Here I am. How does that work?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm hearing the feedback though.
I'm hearing feedback too. So.
I'll just stand on the podium. All right. Good morning. Sorry about the feedback on Zoom. I don't know if Joe was able to hop on or not. He said he might. Joe Weiland is the chair of the Land Trust for Santa Barbara County, and I am the executive director of the Land Trust for Santa Barbara County. So I'm very fortunate to have Joe's help in leading our board. Chris, I'm hearing a lot of feedback.
There you go.
But I can't stand here, really? Okay.
Just speak up and we'll just a lot.
Okay, very good. I'll talk loudly. I'm a lot better like this. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So the Land Trust for Santa Barbara County is a nonprofit 501c3 public benefit organization that works to protect land throughout this county for conservation reasons, for public benefit reasons. That can include habitat, recreation, and local food systems. Who's advancing my slides? Is that Hannah?
I am.
Okay, next slide, please. And so I just said this, our mission is really about protecting the special places in the county, not only for our own appreciation today, but with perpetuity in mind and to the benefit of future generations. Next slide. I want to give you a couple examples of lands that we've conserved in this county that you might be familiar with and some that you won't be. So our organization has been around just under 40 years, and we've protected 28,000 acres of land in the county, and we have another 30,000 acres on tap imminently to be conserved, which is really wonderful. Some of the examples of lands we protected are the bluffs in Carpinteria, from Rincon to Carpinteria Bluff. These are publicly accessible, and this kind of bluff habitat and public access is fairly rare now in California. A lot of it has been developed. And what's so special about Santa Barbara County is we're relatively undeveloped, and we still have the ability to make choices about what areas are protected and what areas we grow into. Next slide. We recently protected 1,000 acres off of Highway 1 out on Halama Canyon Ranch with the White Buffalo Land Trust. If you've ever gone to Halama Beach, then you've driven right past this property. It's a stunning 1,000-acre parcel with rolling oak woodlands and a lot of that transition to coastal habitat. It will be protected forever through a mechanism we call a conservation easement. A conservation easement is a legally binding recorded contract that stays on the title of the property forever, disallowing further development. So there's still an underlying fee title holder, fee owner of the property, just like you own your house. In this case, White Buffalo Land Trust, that does regenerative agriculture, owns the property. They get to conduct their agriculture. They get to live in the housing on the property, but we hold a conservation easement that makes sure it will never be subdivided and turned into sort of a sprawl development. Next slide. We also partner with different agencies to protect land and then convey that land to them for their ownership and management. An example of this is the Sedgwick Reserve, which is in the San Ynez Valley area, and that's owned now by UCSB, and it's part of their natural reserve system. So we were able to come in at the beginning of that project, help purchase some of the land, and then transfer it to the university. We've done something similar in partnering with them at Carpinteria Salt Marsh. Next slide. And I mentioned that we also protect land for local food systems, agriculture. This county, I'll talk about it in a little bit, is really fortunate to have spectacular soil and great land for growing food. And so we work with family farmers and ranchers to preserve their farms while keeping them in business. And so this is an example, just under 400 acres outside of Lompoc. A guy named Art Hibbets really didn't want his family ranch to be consumed with the growth that was happening between Buellton and Solvang, and he decided to put a conservation easement on his property that will protect it forever, and we hold that easement. Next slide. Okay, this is another example outside of Lompoc. So sometimes we're protecting land because of the value of the food it provides. Other times we're protecting ranch land because of the habitat it provides. We don't tend to think of cows and endangered species going together, but they actually do in this county. And this is an example of where we protected grazing habitat because of the incredible ponds on the property that host California red-legged frog and tiger salamanders. And so the Campbell family was able to extract pretty significant financial resources as a result of our purchase of a conservation easement that allows them to keep a really healthy, thriving agriculture business going and ensures that their ranch will always stay in ranching and be protected. Next slide. I think this might be my last example for now. So this is another deal we closed last year. This is called Yellow Foxtrot, which was just the name of the LLC that purchased land in the Prisima Hills for the purpose of developing a vineyard. And one of the other ways that we conserve land besides just buying a conservation easement or buying the land itself is we'll put a conservation easement on a property as a condition of development, as a condition of somebody getting their permits. It's called mitigation. And so in this case, a company wanted to develop some wine grapes. In exchange, they needed to protect the natural resources on the property as a condition of getting their permits. And so they came to the land trust and we said, yep, that property has value, that habitat has value. It would be in the public best interest to protect the land in perpetuity. So we accepted the conservation easement. They got their permits to plant their grapes. Next slide. One more. The Tranquion project. Oh, we skipped past it.
Oh.
This is another example of mitigation. Backwards. There we go. This is also an example in Lompoc that's just under 3,000 acres of land, the Tranquion wind project. So there's a wind development, a wind farm that was installed to produce, clean energy. And obviously producing energy in any way has an impact, even if it's clean energy. And so this was also a mitigation project in which, as a condition of approval for the wind turbines, the vast majority of the ranching land where those turbines were located needed to be protected forever. And so we hold that conservation easement. It makes the clean energy a little bit cleaner to have the land also protected in the area where the wind is being developed and farmed. Next slide. Okay, a couple of highlights from our organization last year. It's almost time for 2022 highlights, but I'm not ready for that. Next, please. We had one of our biggest years in over 20 years, probably because Joe was chair. We protected over 4,000 acres of land throughout the county. Next. And we established a free hiking series that we're running throughout the county called Land Trust Treks. It's really important to us that everyone feels like our work is reflective of them. And I believe that everybody has a connection to the outdoors and a personal relationship with the outdoors. But we really want to make sure everybody feels comfortable getting out and exploring new places. And so we have some trained docents that are picking their favorite places to hike and walk throughout the county, and then offering these free hikes to anyone who'd like to join. And we're making a point of offering these hikes both in English and Spanish. And so if you have a favorite place or an idea of a hike and would like to request something, you can let us know. If you have an interest in serving as a hike leader, we're always recruiting and training new hike leaders, and we really want to make sure that we're well distributed throughout the county. Next. And then we're really just focused on enhancing public access to these natural conserved spaces. So I mentioned the Rincon Bluffs. That was a property that we purchased and transferred to the city of Carpinteria so that it can be included in the public park system. We believe that there are additional opportunities for recreation and open space throughout the county. The Santa Maria Valley is relatively underserved when it comes to connections with open space. Here in South County, there's lots of places you can get on a trail and go hiking, and we really believe that everybody should have that, nearby their home. And so we're looking to develop a preserve or a public park in Santa Maria Valley. Next. Or San Ynez Valley. And that's what I just said. And then I think it's really important that I note that we work with willing landowners, whether that is an individual family or a business or just an individual person. We protect land only when somebody who owns the land is willing to do so. We don't make anybody do anything. We don't force this upon anyone, but we believe there's a lot of folks who consider Santa Barbara a very special place. And within the county, there's an abundant amount of land that can still be protected and not impede future development of the county. And so we partner with folks who are like-minded. We don't come in and shove anything down anybody's throat. Next. Okay, this might be a little hard to see today, but this is a map of the areas where we've already protected land. I said we've protected 28,000 acres of land. That sounds like a lot. And then you take a look at our county and realize what a massive place it is. So in many ways, we've only just begun, 35 years in. This blue color right here indicates that we hold a conservation easement on the property. Again, that's a perpetual protection preventing further development that still allows whoever owns the property to live there, conduct their business, whatever it is. We currently hold 54 of those easements around the county. And then we own a couple of pieces of property outright, including Arroyo Hondo Preserve, which I think some of you might have gone for a hike on, and I'll show you some picture in a minute. So that's down here on the Gaviota Coast, and that's a free, publicly accessible preserve, and we welcome school groups and anyone who wants to visit, other nonprofits to come out, Boys and Girls Club, if they want to come out and host an outdoor experience free of charge and with trained docents. And then we also have partners that do conservation in this county with us, like the California Rangeland Trust and the Nature Conservancy. And so we work with them to decide who's the best entity to do the conservation and might we share responsibilities for protecting the land. And then lastly, I mentioned sometimes we buy and transfer land to another agency. So here's Sedgwick Preserve in this San Ynez area. Next. Okay, a few reflections on our impact. The bottom line here is we really try to do public-private partnerships. We bring a lot of dollars through federal and state sources into our county to invest in this work. And then we really are trying to increase our relationships with communities throughout the county and get people excited about this work. Next. I mentioned Arroyo Hondo Preserve. So this is a really important opportunity to get people out on the land. It's located on the Gaviota Coast. It's about 800 acres. We have trained docents. That's a picture of our docent class graduating, who will host groups to make sure people feel comfortable and get their questions answered. And we do provide money to cover the cost of busing for schools. So if you know a school that might be interested or a nonprofit that might be interested in bringing a group of folks out to the preserve and would enjoy time outside to have a picnic or go for a walk, we can cover the cost in many cases of that busing so that it's not a barrier to getting people out to Gaviota. Next. The preserve also burned. In October, it was 95% burned by the Alisal fire that started on the ridge just above it. It started as a result of that incredible windstorm we had there was a lightning, remember the lightning storm we had back in early October? And lightning struck a tree up in the Los Padres forest up by Alisal Ranch at the top of the ridge, and it just sort of festered for over a week. And then all of a sudden we had a massive windstorm, and that was all it took to kick up an ember inside this tree stump that had been sitting there for over a week. Yeah, and then it blasted from the top of the ridge down to the beach in one day, and our preserve was in its path. From our perspective, that's okay. We recognize that we live with wildfire, and it's actually an important part of the natural systems. Of course, the top priority is keeping people safe. So we worked with fire agencies to make sure that our preserve was evacuated. Our caretakers were out. They did a tremendous job defending the structures, the historic adobe on site. But other than that, we let Mother Nature do her thing. And this property hadn't burned in over 50 years, so it was really due. There was a lot of dry material, and frankly, it was a risk. And so to have the fire come through and have everybody be safe, and we only lost sort of incidental structures, electrical, well pumps, that kind of thing, we've been able to replace it. As of this last month, as of May, we were able to reopen the preserve and welcome visitors back, which is a huge deal for us. But in the meantime, all the fire following flowers, all the plants that only come out after fire and really have a chance to take their moment on the stage, was able to bloom in the spring, and they'll do so for another couple of springs following fire. So please come out. And we're indebted to our volunteers that help us restore trails and get ready to reopen the preserve to visitors, because it was pretty hammered. As you can see from this picture, everything burned. And then right after it burned, we got a couple of rainstorms, which washed everything down our roads and trails, and we had to recut those spaces to get ready to have people back. Next. Okay. Oh, is this going to load? I hope so. What happens if you hit next again?
Oh, if I hit next.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, we could play a random one of these, or you could go to the presentation.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, good. There should be a play bar. Try hitting enter again. Oh, no.
Let's see.
This may not work today, but we do place wildlife cameras throughout the preserve. We had a little video of a bobcat that I was going to show you that was taken before the fire. But we're very fortunate to have a volunteer who used to work for National Geographic come out and place wildlife cameras after the fire. And so if you grab a copy of our newsletter, which we have here, you'll see a pretty kitty. Yep, thank you. A little kitty on the cover. It's a mountain lion. And the wildlife was back in the preserve within a week of the fire hunting. And also because the creek still had water, even though it was quite ashy, the creek was able to be a resource for the local wildlife. So I don't think our critter cam will play, but we do have a whole YouTube channel dedicated to wildlife cameras if you're interested. Okay. I touched on the value of agriculture. You know, it's easy to think of conservation and think of open space, preserves, reserves, that kind of thing. But in this county, we're really fortunate that we have prime ag soils and the ability to grow food that supports not only our county, but the whole region. And it's an important source of revenue for the county. So I just want to mention a little bit about that. Can you go to the next slide? This is a map. It's hard to see, but the bottom line is the pink areas on the map are existing development. So here's Santa Maria. This is like the Solvang, Buellton area. Here we are down in South County, which is really developed. And then the green colors on the map indicate special soils or prime soils that are really important for growing food. And so you can see that those soils occur adjacent to areas where we've already been developing. And so the question as we choose to grow becomes, which way do we grow? Where do we grow? And do we want to protect some of the soils and these really productive ag lands for food development? And then there's another layer that's really hard to see that touches on which properties in the county, the hash marks, are protected under something called the Williamson contract, which provides some property tax relief for people already in agriculture. So one of the questions I get sometimes is, you're buying land, you're protecting land, you're taking it out of the property tax rolls. Doesn't that have an impact on our property tax revenue? And the answer is, the vast majority of the places where we purchase conservation easements are already enrolled in the Williamson Act, and they're already paying a reduced property tax rate. So it's really not creating much of a difference at all. Next. And then, you know, this is from the farm report last year, but this county generates almost $2 billion a year in revenue from agriculture. And our number one crop is strawberries and has been for a long time. But this is surprising. Number two is cauliflower. Cauliflower jumped up in the ratings because of all the gluten-free food. And so you really, the cauliflower pizza dough and the cauliflower rice. And that's maybe a funny thing to mention, except when you think about, as we change, as society changes, as what people demand changes, agriculture needs to be able to respond to that. And so if we lose too much ag, or we don't have flexibility in terms of where we grow food, you know, we're really going to be impacted. In this case, you know, it would be sad if cauliflower wasn't able to ascend to the top of the list. Okay, next slide. And then, you know, celery, wine grapes, of course, nursery flowers.
Broccoli.
Don't forget all those, the broccoli, the stinky ones. Yeah. Cannabis isn't on the list yet, and that is a fraught process of permits and all of that, but cannabis will probably appear on that list at some point. So the prime soils are just a way that we can make decisions about what lands to protect for agriculture. How do we make decisions about what lands to protect for habitat? How do we know there's anything special in those places? Well, we have a lot of data to back up the decisions that we make. This map, you don't need to know much except for that every color on the map means that that's a space where something that's endangered or threatened or a special status species of plant or animal exists in Santa Barbara County. And the message here is that our county is home to a lot of cool creatures. We're in an area where we have the northernmost habitat for southern species and the southernmost habitat for northern species. So the biodiversity in Santa Barbara County is just off the charts. When you think about the habitat types we have almost everything that occurs in California, from coastal salt marshes all the way out to Cuyama area, which is on the edge of the Central Valley, and everything in between. So pretty much anywhere you step in this county is home to something special. And so what we do is work with the willing landowners to then determine what public benefit exists from protecting their property. Does this belong in recreation? Does this belong in preservation? And then we figure out how to pay for it through a blend of private support, of course, but also through these public grant opportunities. Right now, there's an incredible amount of funding for conservation. People are calling it once in a lifetime level of funding. The state has an initiative called the 30 by 30 initiative, which is really aimed at protecting 30% of California's land and waters by 2030. In order to do that, we'll need to protect another 6 million acres throughout the state, which is a high bar, but there are a lot of dollars attached to that idea. And Santa Barbara County is primed to receive that investment because of how special this place is. So we're working very hard to make sure Santa Barbara County gets the investment we deserve to do this conservation. Next.
3 minutes.
Got it. I think we're almost done. Okay, so I mentioned that we protect land in part for these critical species. You know, not everybody wakes up in the morning thinking about a tiger salamander or red-legged frog. That doesn't move everybody's heart in the same way. Next. So when you think of these species, the other thing you can think of is just money. So maybe you don't like the slimy factor, but these are species that are connected to real dollars that allow us to invest in protecting these special places. So sometimes ranchers and people who are trying to do anything on their property get really stymied by the presence of an endangered species. Whenever we can, we show up and help bring resources to protect that species, but then also that allows the property owner to invest in their business or whatever it is they'd like to do. Okay, and the last concept I want to touch on is just that we're learning more and more about the economic benefit of protecting land. I think we've all experienced firsthand the impact of this incredible wildfire regime we're living in. By protecting areas that create clean air, clean water, allow for carbon sequestration, allow for climate resiliency, we're actually saving money in the process. I think you know that a lot of insurance companies are canceling homeowner insurance policies in wildfire-prone areas. There's a real impact on human health, asthma rates, and other things as a result of the smoke. What we've learned is some of these open spaces that can then help clean up and absorb the impact of that really do add an economic benefit. So it's something to be mindful of. Next. And this is why. This is the fire risk map for our county. As you can, and of course the Los Padres National Forest is very high risk. For some reason it's green on this map. But the message is that if you live in Santa Barbara County, you're going to be dating wildfire. And the question is just how do we have that relationship? How do we stay safe? And how do we make thoughtful choices about conservation in a way that could maybe absorb fire or help us recover from it? Thank you. Next. And I think that's it. The takeaway for us is that as an organization, we're working to become increasingly relevant to the entire county. And we have a moment right now in which we can make real decisions that will benefit future generations about protecting special places. And so we hope that you'll learn more. And I really appreciate your time today. And thank you very much for it. Okay. You put up the last slide.
Thank you, Meredith. Are you able to stick around a little bit if people have questions afterward?
Yeah.